Shalom, family, and welcome back to the Semitic Jew channel, where scripture is handled with clarity, discipline, and historical honesty, not with religious chaos. Today, we're in the book of 1 Timothy. If Thessalonians dealt with things like external pressure or fear, 1 Timothy deals with internal threats, bad leadership, false teaching, and lack of order. This book is Paul teaching Israelites how to protect the community from the inside. Let's get into it. So, why Paul wrote 1 Timothy? He deals with that in chapter 1. Paul leaves Timothy in Ephesus for one reason, or maybe a number of reasons. He says that thou mightest charge some that they teach no other doctrine. In other words, shut down things like bad teaching before it spreads. So Paul isn't worried about persecution in a sense. He's worried about the confusion coming from inside the house. So false teachers were, first of all, misusing the law, chasing speculation, and also teaching myths, evaluating themselves. But here's the thing. Paul makes it clear that the law is good when used lawfully, not as a tool for our ego to control people or even to profit monetarily. Number 2, leadership shapes the community. Great leaders make great communities. That's chapters 2 and 3. So Paul shifts to structure. Why? Why does structure matter? Because disorganized leadership creates disoriented people. He outlines things like the qualifications, for example. He says overseers. You need overseers. You need servants. You need leaders. These aren't status positions. They're responsibility positions. Paul doesn't say leaders must be flashy, loud, or charismatic, or charismatic. He says that they must be disciplined, self-controlled, faithful. It's not going to look the same for everybody, but they also need to be respected. So in other words, character over charisma, and that principle still matters today. Number 3, the community must know its role. That's chapter 2. So Paul gives instructions about things like conduct, prayer, and human behavior. This is not about silencing people. It's about order under pressure. When a community is under surveillance and stress, chaos is dangerous. Paul is teaching Israelites, don't let disorder undo what persecution couldn't. Number 4, Paul warns about spiritual exploitation. That's in chapter 4. So he predicts that some will depart from the faith. Some will teach doctrines of demons. And some will even exploit spirituality. So he tells Timothy, train yourself in godliness. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, and even contrasts things like performative spirituality with steady obedience. He says, don't confuse intensity or zeal with truth. Number 5, respect accountability and balance. That's chapter 5. Paul addresses how to treat elders, how we should treat elders, how we should treat widows, how we should treat leaders, and even accused teachers. This stuff matters because mishandling authority either leads to abuse, lawlessness, and Paul insists on accountability, evidence, fairness, and not favoritism, because favoritism leads to cover-ups and even sometimes witch hunts. So that balance is rare and definitely necessary. Number 6, money and power are always a test, right? That's chapter 6. Paul ends with a warning that still hits hard today. Quote, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, end quote. Paul isn't anti-resources. He's anti-exploitation. He warns the Israelites not to confuse gain with godliness. or not to confuse wealth with blessing and power with truth. Timothy is instructed to protect the community from leaders who monetized the faith. And that's timeless, and it's even applicable today. Here's the closing message. The book of 1 Timothy teaches Israelites how to maintain order, vet leadership, and shut down false teaching, protect the community from bad leaders, and to protect the vulnerable, balancing authority with accountability, and to guard the community from internal decay. So this book proves something very important, that a community can survive oppression, because we have, but it won't survive corruption from within. And Paul understood that. So if this teaching brought clarity to your understanding, please like, share, and subscribe. And definitely comment below your thoughts on this letter. In the next episode, 2 Timothy, and we discuss things like endurance, loyalty, and even finishing the race. Shalom, family, and I'll see you in the next one.